Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of The Lab. As always, sitting with you, you have in his rocking chair, Brandon Wierig. The man bun in the corner there is Alex Schroeder. And with the headphones, I'm Lou Folenkamp. We hope you guys enjoyed last week's episode. It was a wonderful little discussion that we had there. But kind of switching up gears here today, we're actually going to talk about the preseason. In some of our previous episodes, we've discussed in-season training and the importance of, maintaining your fitness, your strength, conditioning, what have you, throughout the season. But we wanted to kind of change up the timing of everything, and we're going to go more with the preseason today. Some of you might not have a good idea of what preseason means. It's pretty self-explanatory, but preseason conditioning or training basically just refers to just before the competitive season, right? Like I said, self-explanatory. However, there's a specific focus in physical preparation where we're going to have a little bit of a discussion between Brandon, Alex, and I about maybe what key attributes of the athlete need to be addressed before, whether or not if it's strength, whether or not if it's endurance, agility, maybe it's a particular skill. This could be a few weeks, this could be a few months before the actual start of the competitive season, whether if it's soccer, for example, for this fall, or football. But just some of the reasons why it actually matters is obviously if you're under conditioned, I guess from a physical therapist point of view, or maybe an athletic trainer point of view, if you're under conditioned, there's maybe some movement pattern that's maybe not efficient as it possibly could be. And then you go trying to compete at that high level in season, and you're maybe not up to snuff where you maybe need to be. You come see me, or you meet with the athletic trainer, and then after that, you come see me. So let's not have that happen. Let's have a little bit of a discussion here between Brandon, Alex, and I on why preseason is so important. Take it away, gents.
You want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead. I want to hear both of your rants here. I'm curious.
This is where I'm going to start getting a little bit more into a sport-specific style, like demand. Every sport, like fall, for instance, like their preseason is longer than any other preseason there is for high school sports. Because when you got like all summer, and then like when August hits is like when your camp starts. So you're basically going from August to maybe the third or fourth week of August. You got like a 3 or 4 week hard camp preseason style to where like basketball, your fall sport ends. You only get maybe you're supposed to get, your 2 or 3 days off, and you're going right into it. And you might have a basketball scrimmage depending on how far you go into your tournament in the fall. Like you might even miss a scrimmage. So like you don't really get a preseason, which I mean, if you're talking football conditioning and basketball conditioning, that is two totally different movements. Like if you come right out of football season and you think, okay, I just got done playing football, I'm going to go into basketball, I'll be fine. You're not going to be. Same thing going into baseball, going into track. Like those are just two different energy system, two different demands. So having that preseason is very vital. So for multi-sport athletes, you're going to have like that week or two transition. But for like right now, like my basketball boys, I'm kind of starting getting them ready conditioning wise for what's about to come. Like these guys play 2 or 3 times a week. They play all 32 minutes every game, and they have to be on the gas for that whole time. So right now we're just working on just getting their GPP up, and also we're working on building. Like I'm a guy that you're sprinting all year round. No matter what sport you're playing, you're always going to sprint all year round. So now can we build off that? So right now we're doing kind of heavy resisted sprints. We might do 10 heavy yards of resistance sprints for 5-6 reps, and then we're going to reduce the weight a little bit. We're going to go 20 yards, and then maybe we'll reduce the weight a little bit. We'll go 40 yards, and that's kind of like our peak power sprint burst style with kind of minimal rest, kind of matching that game style. So you're probably going to play probably no longer than a minute and a half straight without something happening, ball going out of bounds, free throws, timeouts, so on and so forth. So just kind of mimicking that style of basketball, what I mean, kind of more sport specific, but that also kind of goes true for at a much larger scale. Soccer, you kind of have that same motion. You walk a lot in soccer. I mean, if you sit in a soccer game, there's a lot of walking going on. So that recovery time is kind of the same. You'll have like that burst. Obviously, the field's way bigger, but and you're going to cover more ground, but you are going to walk a lot. So you can kind of mimic those styles of training. But then I usually finish up with a aerobic capacity or a pushing the anaerobic going into aerobic. So maybe like a 300 shuttle or something along those lines for a basketball, I guess, aspect, what I'm doing personally with the guys that I'm working with right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
and just to like piggyback off of that, that actually is something that I picked up and learned like from Brandon as well, is as far as like sprinting or some kind of a sprint like year round, rather than just like continually to build like their strength and endurance. Pretty much, they still have to have those mechanics, especially as their leverages change and as their power output increases. They need to be able to learn to control it and everything like that. So, like, I'm not ashamed to go out and ask on how to make an athlete better if I don't know the answer to, especially like if I can't find it, if I'm like doing my own research and stuff like that. So, that's one of the things that like Brandon has drastically helped me with as far as like the sprinting aspect of training the athletes and keeping them at like a high level like that. And then with like the sports specific stuff, it just, it just because like you have a basketball in your hand or you're carrying a football while doing a one arm curl with the other arm, like doesn't make it sports specific. That's so stupid. Like the way that we do sports specific training or how we look at it is we look in terms of like the personnel. So if you're going to have
Mm-hmm.
a offensive lineman, for example, they're going to naturally be squatting to like a higher box because that's where their power output needs to be the strongest at, is when they're in their stance and they're firing off the line. So if you just take that and just rotate them down just how you would on a box squat, their same angles are the same. So, and then you get like specialty players and stuff like AJ, for example. AJ typically trains to a lower box because he's in weird positions that he needs to be strong in. So, like those really aggressive, um, where he's like trying to push the hole forward and stuff, and his hips are low, and he's trying to get under people's pads, like that kind of stuff.
Actually, I think you bring up a pretty good point to talk about then, Trotter, because you just went through a lot of different specifics for each sport. So I think, just for like developing strength and conditioning coaches, one thing I would say, and even as like a physical therapist or athletic trainer, is to become a student of the sport and find what the specific needs or attributes of that position is. And then that's how you can kind of critique and modify your training for that athlete, like you guys have already done. I think that sometimes can get kind of lost and people think stronger, faster, bigger in all aspects of training. But I do think that kind of making it more like that individualized approach or a position specific approach can also be wonderful and necessary. So I guess
Well,
kind of going into, sorry, what were you going to say?
oh, I mean, like the other aspect of it is, we hear every year, especially with like our soccer players, is they're going into like their two a days and stuff like that. And they have like the beep tests, or they got to run like stadium stairs plus a mile in between, or they got to run, 15 down and backs in a certain time, like on the field. I mean, name one instance where that ever happens in a game. Like if you want to truly become like sports specific, right? As a coach, then you need to train the way that those players are going to play. It's, I don't know. It's not rocket science, but people make it out to be.
Yeah.
Well, I'll even push it so far. Like whenever I'm like, I tell my guys, like, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to hit it in. But in reality, in your sport, you get a timeout, right? If your coach sees like his team is gassed and there's 2 minutes left in the game, dude's going to call a timeout. All right, take the rest. So you get one timeout. Like you're going to go as hard as you can. When you guys feel like you guys need that timeout, take the timeout. We'll take a minute rest. Then you're going to finish it with everything you got. Just to try to make it that much more. Because if you start getting to that, you got all of a sudden you're on the clock, you're doing intervals, and you see you got a minute and a half, 2 minutes left. You're going to start kind of teetering down a little bit. That's just, the body's naturally going to happen like that. So if you take that 30-second or that minute rest and give yourself, if I can teach you how to properly recover faster, which is what conditioning is how fast you recover.
Yep.
To give you that extra burst, that's what we're going to do. Like you running a mile, that's not going to make you more explosive, not going to make you more faster in your sport. It's just going to figure out, okay, this is how I can coast a mile.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden when I got to go to a quick change of direction and repeat and start and stop, my body's not ready for it.
And that's how injuries happen, because you're not training to be ready for your sport. You can't just
And that's what
just hop in.
yeah. That's what pre-comp's all about. Like when we start getting in closer to like if I'm doing an overhead med ball throw at max effort, like I'm starting to engage the rotator cuffs, the lats, like that works for volleyball players, it works for baseball players, it works for tennis serves, it works. I mean, it's a broad spectrum, so it's not necessarily sport specific teetered to one area.
I agree.
So I could have 4 or 5 different sports doing one exercise that's going to benefit them for their sport.
Yeah. I mean, look
and
at the
that's my rant
consequences
right there.
of that's your rant. I was going to say, look at the consequences of, let's say, Aaron Rodgers, who just suffered an Achilles tendon rupture last night against the Bills. So one thing that they're going to go back and analyze is maybe what he was doing in preseason, especially with all the hodgepodge that was going on in media, talking about where's he going to go, what's he going to be doing. I mean, how much time was allocated to actual training? I don't know. He wasn't really sure what he was going to do at that point. So it's kind of interesting to see and like talk about like the increased risk of injury, the lack of performance in terms of like conditioning or even like being able to perform at a high speed or even sustaining speed. Just kind of, I mean, we have, trying to think, I think I saw a statistic today that like there's already 14 Achilles ruptures so far, and we've just started the season in the NFL. That's kind of crazy to me.
Well, I mean, there was remember a couple of years ago, there was like a bunch of ACLs blown out.
COVID year.
Yeah.
COVID year. Yeah, that it's just
everybody wants to
Achilles?
Blame it on the turf.
Yeah, but I would rather go back
to
and
an
look
extent,
at like what was
I mean,
their preparation.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think turfs is the cause for it as what people say it is. Like, if you start breaking like frame by frame, like, no, you're just getting too fancy in your freaking speed and agility and balance ladders, and you're not working on putting power into the ground. I'm not probably learning how to decelerate coming out of a cut. Then all of a sudden your leg gets locked out and you try to cut, and Newton's first law of motion, anything in motion goes in motion. It's going to keep going the way it's going because you ain't got no post chain to change the direction, and wonder why you're just tore your ACL because you're trying to go one way, your knee's going one way, you're trying to rotate, and
it's just
my 2 cents on it. I mean, turf's been around for a lot longer, and all of a sudden these ACL injuries are going through the roof longer than turf's been around. You start getting, and I think also cleats might have a little bit of effect to it because everybody's trying to get the lightest and smallest and type of cleat to where they just can't handle that kind of motion on that little of material.
Yeah. Point made. Yeah. So kind of leading into more of, I guess, the sport specific, what you said you've been using specific types of exercises for same sports, or would you say like you go way more specific based off the athlete's sport? So like, for example, obviously the difference between a cross country runner and a football player, you guys are taking what approaches to their trainings as they get into the fall and into the season? Like, what are you guys maybe shying away from? Yeah, whatever you guys are like kind of shying away from and then getting into more.
Yeah, I'll start getting rid, like for my cross country runners, I'll start getting away from the eccentric stuff. I mean, you're already pounding your body with miles and miles. I'm going to kind of just take away that eccentric portion of it. I'm going to kind of start getting away from your bilateral stuff. So we can still work on creating a high amount of force production, but we can do it single leg. A little less taxing on the nervous system, but also like as a runner, all you do is one leg at a time. So we spent all summer for like cross country, for instance, we spent all summer working on just like bilateral power outputs and things like that. And now we're going to kind of transition it more into like a single leg unilateral style training, kind of start working on, depends on the courses or depends what style of training they have at school. Like if they're doing the same exact course every time and it's 5 left turns and 2 right turns, that left hip's going to start kind of taking a pounding. So I can kind of start figuring out some what deficits where and things along that line through like unilateral training too.
Yeah.
Okay. How about in terms of sports that don't necessarily always have like, let's say like a true preseason, like Trotter, speaking on powerlifting, when you guys like establish the date of a meet, how have you gone about like adjusting and like making sure that you're peaking at the right time? Like, how do you establish like what for you might be different for like another person who like, let's say is new to the game of powerlifting?
Ooh. I mean, if you're new to the game, then the best thing that you can do is just compete. Just keep competing. I mean, compete 4 or 5 times a year. Like until you start building like a very high threshold of certain weights, or you start competing to the point of, oh, hey, I could win some money at this meet, then you can back it down and start planning them out for 2 meets a year kind of thing. But in terms of like just getting started, you just need to get started. Like everybody talks about, oh, I need to bulk up first, then get stronger. Like that'll happen as you go. Or what's another one? Oh, I'm not very competitive in my weight class. No shit. Somebody's been lifting in your weight class for the last 15 years. Like you're not going to be better than them. That's literally like you stepping onto an NFL field for the first time and trying to guard Devontae Adams or Jamar Chase for the local people. Like he's gonna cook you. Like he's gonna make you look stupid. It's the same thing. It's all about just like gradually progressing, and then that's part of the conjugate system too. Is we are ready at any given time all year round. That's why you do your speed squats with your certain percentages, with your certain bands during different times of the year, because there's different loading phases and stuff, right? But realistically, at any given time, like if you're staying true to the method, you're ready for a meet within 3 weeks.
Okay, that's pretty sweet to know. So what if you had like maybe not a true team sport, or maybe not powerlifting, but more of like maybe a martial artist, or someone has like that one bout and then they're done for like, let's say, a few months? Like, how are you guys going to go about ramping up that person? Or maybe taking into consideration like it's a team sport, but they score as individuals, like track. So like in track, you have multiple different like, events that you can do. So like if you guys work with a team, how are you guys going about with like more of like that individual event approach?
You got to train the individual. I mean, then that becomes like individualized. So, if I have a hurdler, for example, that can't hold a top end speed, then we are going to change the way that he or she, I guess, trains into more like of a strength endurance, so they can continue to hold that top end speed. But then, if you have one that can hold that top end speed, but they're like a diesel truck and they take forever to get out of the blocks to the first hurdle, then they need to train that first explosive movement. They need to work on their accelerations. And so you got to train them kind of the same, yet different at the same time.
So you can easily just they both do the same, say, dynamic squats. All right, one's doing a 5x5 or a 4x6, and the other one's doing a 10x2 or whatever it may be. Well, the exercise can stay the same, but the rep schemes and stuff like that can kind of start teetering, one way or the other.
Because at that point, you're looking at bar speed, especially for like the strength endurance. So whether they're doing a 10x2, which is 20 reps, or they're doing we'll just make it easy, a 4x5 for 20 reps too. Each one of those reps, regardless of the athlete, the bar still moves the exact same.
Kind of like that overall preparedness.
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of, if you guys had to put down the top 3 things you guys look for in athletes besides bar speed, like as the season approaches, what would you guys say you're really honing in on? Like what would be like your KPIs?
Your overall just physical preparedness. That's the first one. If we've been working for a while, and I know you got a certain shifts one way or the other, is that dialed in? Is your, like right now, I got one basketball guy that just always rolls his ankles. So like if I do his ankle test and it's within, or if it's off by a finger or two, like, hey, last time you were off this distance, you rolled it. So kind of get a little bit more specific into like what that athlete. It's kind of hard to just to dial in to say in general terms, because everybody's so different and everybody's just along the lines of that. But I would say if I had to pick one thing overall, I'd just say, are you generally physically prepared for your sport?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
The rest is just kind of too broad, I guess, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that it simply comes down to the athlete, like Brandon said as well. You know, like if I have like a basketball player, right? So we're training, we're switching her style up to more of like a volume to get her ready and to slowly build her GPP without necessarily just hammering her on like sprints. So we're doing that in all aspects of it. So like we're shortening her rest periods. She's getting more volume in because she's starting to handle more. So not only is the weights going up, but she's doing more reps with it. So that has to be tracked as well because you're inevitably going to hit a wall where there could be an injury that happens, or like we need to back it off for like a week or two, let her body acclimate, and then reassign it from there. So a lot of that has to go. But one of the other things is I would really rely on athlete feedback. So, you know, when they go to like open gyms or they go to their first practice or something like that, and, you know, they're saying that, you know, whatever, they ran 10 suicides or something like that. Well, all of a sudden, my athlete's not the one that's bent over like sucking air, but she's just fine and could have gone more. And she was like, you know, top 3 in all the sprints too. So that shows me that her power's staying up, her speed staying up, and her endurance is staying up, which I can't ask for anything more than that at that phase.
Makes sense. But anything else you guys would want to maybe, I guess, little words of advice maybe to the athletic trainers, the strength coaches at the high school level? Because I mean, obviously you guys are out in
I
like
could
the
spend
private sector.
That could be a whole episode right there.
Yeah.
Hey, lay it on me. I'm ready for it.
Well,
But
I'll
at the
start
high
out with
school
this.
level or athletic trainers.
There's more to the lifting than the squat, the power clean, the deadlift, the military press, and I'm missing one. Squat,
Deadlift,
bench,
maybe trap
deadlift,
bar,
hang clean.
hang clean.
Did I say that one? Yeah, them 5. There's more than that than just 5 lifts.
Yeah.
And you don't got to do them the same exact rep scheme and the same exact days and the same exact time every week.
And the same weights. How, like, that is so stupid. How are you going to get stronger doing the same thing day after day? Like that blows my mind.
And if you can't front squat, you shouldn't be hang cleaning.
No, break the movement down. If you like, literally a hang clean, it's got to start on the ground. So you got to pull it up. That's a deadlift. Then from there, you're doing a high pull to get it up. If you suck at high pulls, you shouldn't do the hang clean. If you suck at like front squat, if your deadlift is 200 pounds and your front squat is 100 pounds, your hang clean is 100 pounds. That's what it is. Like, it's so simple. You just break it all down, and whatever is the weakest, that's your number. I don't even need to do a hang clean. I know what it's going to be.
I didn't think I was going to get that intense of a rant out of you two. Jeez and Pete.
I hate
Olympic I just get tired of hearing it every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks Olympic lift is like the king exercise or whatever. And it is. It's a very technical lift. But if you're not proficient in all 3 things that go into that one movement, then you suck.
That actually brings a very good point, though. Like using the Olympic lifts, like almost like the one day when we were doing the sprints on the treadmill, for that example, like you're a pretty powerful guy, right? So like watching try to run, like you then watch him deadlift, you got a lot of strength. But it was like, how do you go about like expressing that? And it is a little bit more of a skill almost, as opposed to actually being like a strength attribute.
Oh well, yeah, you have to be able to apply the force in the correct direction.
Exactly.
Well, I actually listened to I read a thing today where it's like in a perfect world, like your force output and power output will translate into this, but in the real world, that's not the case. Because if that was the case, powerlifters would be the fastest people in the world.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more than just the book doesn't exactly explain reality. It just kind of says, okay, this equals this, or this times this equals this. So when you get into reality, and all of a sudden you got a guy that can squat 600 pounds and he can produce a lot of force, but all of a sudden he can't sprint. And that's not, he might not even be a powerlifter. He might just be a freak of nature that gets strong as shit and then just can't apply it.
Yeah.
Not an athlete.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the same day, like just to toot my own horn, I guess, and to kind of talk shit about myself. So like I was 302 pounds or something like that and ran that 18.5 mile an hour. But then like that same time I was jumping around 32, 34 inches. So it's like there is a difference there. I can go up like as long as my power is going like straight down and straight up, I'm golden. But when it's got to go in a line and like unilateral, like there's a big difference there. Because I mean, no matter how much Brandon was like trying to correct my form, I physically could not get into the position that he needed me in.
No, if I could quote you, your belly was smacking your knees. Is what I believe you quoted.
My quads.
Your quads. Sorry.
Yes.
Your quads.
Yeah. But I will say I did still run faster than Lou. So there is that.
No, you didn't.
I don't care what you say. You have no proof.
No, you didn't.
There's a treadmill. There's a treadmill at the gym.
That could be a fun challenge. It could be fun.
I mean, if you want to lose in that too, I guess.
Hey, you already doubted my deadlift. Game on, man.
Yeah.
Why
well,
not?
I mean, yeah. I know a bunch of women that can deadlift 500.
Hey, so do I. So do I. No. Anything else you guys want to add in on preseason conditioning and training?
Most of you coaches are an actual coach for the sport, not the weightlifting coach. We'll handle our shit if you handle yours. It goes together. Like we don't spend 9 months out of the year training your bread and butter athlete for you to fuck it all up during the season. Because that's more annoying than anything I can possibly think of. Every single year we'll get soccer girls to come back and they have lost everything. And it drives me up a wall because I hate restarting.
Tell me how you really feel.
Soccer coach, go fire yourself.
Sweet Lord. I'll edit that out too.
No, you can leave that one.
Leave that one? Okay. I'll think about it. I'll think about it. No. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed today's discussion on preseason training. We will see you guys in the next episode.